Welcome to the darkest before the dawn. We find ourselves at the full moon in Scorpio, occurring May 12th of 2025 at 16:55 GMT. It's a big one. Scorpio full moon can generally be seen as massive uncovering, huge revealing energy, a big reveal, a grand expose of everything that used to be underneath the surface, hidden in the dark, hidden from plain sight, but no longer during this full moon. And so we might be revealed to the raw truth that can feel brutal, because a full moon is always a completion moment where a storyline ends, where something is completed, something is finished, something is full circle. The light of the fullness of the moon reveals things to us from the depth. And in Scorpio, it goes deeper than in any other sign. So this is the ultimate dark and depth that we will be faced with. Now, it occurs at 22 degrees of Scorpio. So that's a hint for you personally. You can see in what house that falls, because that is something where, to you, this is revealed during this full moon. Now, full moon energies can come earlier, so you might already feel this energy at least 2 weeks prior to the lunation. But of course, if you have a planet or point around 22 degrees of Scorpio, then, that theme of that planet or point is intertwined in this lunation story. So big revelations, big exposés occurring at 22 degrees of Scorpio. That's the main theme. But of course, it also affects 22 degrees of Taurus and 22 degrees of Aquarius, as well as 22 degrees of Leo, that this expose might also occur at, especially for you personally. But collectively, we are working mostly with that 22 degrees in Scorpio, as well as the 22 degrees in Taurus, because that's where the sun is at, and the sun is conjunct Uranus, which is no light matter at all. So what we are being exposed to around this lunation is shocking, is earth shattering. Now, because these are fixed signs, and because the sun is in Taurus as well as Uranus, unfortunately, the shakeups can be, the earth shattering can be quite literal, where the earth might be shaking a lot more than normal. This is also, I think, part of the storyline where a lot of governments have been hinting at that there might be power cuts, and you should be, you should prepare yourself for 72 hours of survival. Well, this kind of lunation has that vibe where it's all about survival. It's all about shakeups. Uranus is literally about electricity, as well as, innovation, so technology. So with the sun conjunct here astrologically, combined with the astronomy that, the sun is having a lot of solar flares. The solar activity is at its highest at current times, means there is a strange volatility. Yeah, power cuts, earthquakes, perhaps eruptions, but definitely also survival is a hot topic here, and also finances. 22 degrees is a Capricorn degree, so we could also expect shakeups in political arenas, institutions, situations, political leaders, famous people, famous faces, older faces, huge part of the systematics that we're used to, and this is politics, this is, authority, this is economy, this is cultural even heritage. Everything is under scrutiny, under, quite some pressure. This is the last lunation that Saturn is going to be in Pisces, and I think that is quite significant. This is the last lunation where Saturn will be in Pisces for the coming couple of months until Saturn is back in Pisces because of its retrograde in September. This is the beginning of the end. I think it's the death of a reality as we have known it, and it's death of the old, especially authoritarian systems. Of course, because it's a full moon in Scorpio, we are also dealing with massive Scorpio traits and characteristics. And that means that this lunation is prone to crises, because that is how the Scorpio energy moves. It likes to, shake up through big breakdowns, shattering of situations that we can call crises. Something has to completely die off in Scorpio, and so that it can be birthed again from the ground up, from the ashes that it was burned with. Another big Scorpio topic is manipulation and control, and so a lot of is revealed regarding that theme, either personally, especially if you have something around 22 degrees of Scorpio, but also massively collectively, because that's what the moon represents, the collective people. So manipulation and control is not the forefront. Crises is almost a given. This can be literal, right? What is Scorpio about? This can be emotions. This can be crises in your psyche. This can be crises in very deep subconscious motivations that was driving you for such a long time. But it can also be finances. It's the financial axis, and very dark themes. The moon in Scorpio is a deep expose. The secret and the hidden is no longer. Things are in plain sight during this lunation. The dark is now lit. Stripped, naked, and bare, we may find it very uncomfortable to face the raw truth. With Scorpio, we are also prone to an X-ray vision, which is how we can see that brutal truth. We can see what was in the dark. We can see everything. This makes us very observant, and we will see what was underneath the surface, or we can see underneath that surface. Pattern recognition is easily accessed around this lunation. And that means what I said, very deep drives, very deep motivations, generally from trauma and hurt that has driven you. Scorpio is always a very intense energy, and it cuts deep. And all this uncomfortability is unfortunately highlighted with the opposition to Uranus. So there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of nervousness, and our body might feel very exhausted and just overwhelmed because of that. So our nervous system is on overload, and, expect the unexpected. This is shocking, incoming revelations and exposés. It's not something you necessarily were expecting, because it's coupled to that brutal truth. So nobody wanted to see this, and has to now. Of course, Scorpio is also about mystery, the mysticism, the occult, and alchemizing. So basically transforming and metamorphosizing energy, situations, emotions, and outcomes. If you're drawn to the mystical side of life and drawn to more, divination, such as astrology or tarot or other forms of, almost witchy energy, and that's on point as well with the Scorpio. And we might also either be very obsessed or be revealed to what your obsessions were. Fixations, we could almost say, because with a full moon theme paired with the lightning strike of Uranus, I think we are called for a very deep elimination, very extreme elimination. This is detoxing, this is purging at a deep level, so we can cut off, let go, and ice out what no longer serves us and has to die off for this new journey that begins very soon after, when Saturn moves into Aries, only 13 days after May 25th. Because it is my theory that anchors in a whole new era, whole new karmic journey. And before that can start, something has to dramatically, drastically, extremely end. This is personal. This is where you cut ties in your personal journey, and also collectively, things that we have been used to will no longer be or exist. Thus, we are ending the past. We are releasing what needs to be cut off. We are tying loose ends, and we are undoing tangled karma. This is the time for cutting cords. And you can do that consciously, or the universe will help you with this energy to make things end. Of course, trigger warning, since it's such an extreme energy that will cut very deep, we have to, of course, mention the dark side of Scorpio, because it's a part of this lunation and might easily come up personally and collectively. Now, trigger warning, the dark of Scorpio is pretty dark, right? So we're talking manipulation and control, we're talking abuse, we're talking hurt, trauma, pain, jealousy, vindictiveness, intimidation, force. We might come up with what of these scorpionic factors have we been dealing with our whole life, or certain chapters of our life. We have to face and meet these things. Now, Scorpio can also present the fears, but there is a fearlessness that we need to have around this time. So hopefully you feel empowered to face these pretty confronting topics. Now, when we look at the chart, there are basically a couple of formations that I want to talk about. Of course, we first look at what the moon is doing. The full moon in Scorpio, 22 degrees, is making a mystical rectangle. So I'm going to explain what that is. It's actually positive. And also there is a yod, a very divine energy pointing at the moon in Scorpio. And then, of course, we have the ruler, Pluto. Pluto rules Scorpio, and that one is squaring Mercury, and that's going to be a huge part of the massive expose that will be going on personally and collectively, massively. So, and last but not least, in the background, we also have something important, and that is Jupiter, that is T-squaring the nodes of fate. So we need to talk about that one as well. So first, a mystical rectangle to the moon in Scorpio. Now, a mystical rectangle is made up of two oppositions. So, of course, a full moon is always in opposition. And it means that on the other side of the moon, we have the sun. And the sun is conjunct Uranus, like I mentioned before. Uranus is at an Algol degree, which is a very difficult fixed star in the sky, and it's usually about deep feminine trauma regarding abuse and very deep hurt. So part of that is also means that you may be confronted with either collective abuse, feminine abuse, or actually personal to your story, that you might be faced with that during this lunation. Now, the good thing about astrology is the awareness part. So now that you know, and you might be triggered around this lunation, you know that it's divinely led and guided, because ultimately this is where you can cut out of the pain. So even though you might be triggered or you might be going through deep through the emotions, this is actually your way out. So that's one opposition of the mystical rectangle. The other opposition is the nodes. So we have the south node in Virgo, and we have the north node in Pisces, together with Ceres, sort of the Earth's mother goddess, and Saturn. That's a big opposition. And then together, the nodes and this lunation are helping each other, because the mystical rectangle is made up of 2 sextiles and 2 trines as well. So together with Sun, Uranus, and this nodal influence, it can feel like an eclipse again, actually. So there is a massive intensity, but it's very fated. It's truly divinely led, and this is sort of like the last hurrah where we can say goodbye to the old and really release very deep things that we have been carrying with us, you know, massive baggage that we can now finally leave behind because we no longer need it. It has served us on a soul level, and it's done. It's finito, completed, just like this full moon. So the sextile to the moon is enhancing the detox and purification aspect of the moon in Scorpio. So really, and also full moons tend to be an excellent moment to cleanse out, clear out your physical vehicle. So any cleanses you want to do, any physical purifications, you can do with great intent up to 5 days before this lunation. So that would be between May 7th and May 12th would be excellent to, you know, perhaps eat more clean, do some cleanses that you're interested in, like lemon water, which is super simple, or a little more advanced but actually very effective, some say, and that is fasting. So if you can fast, you know, research how many hours you can do, but intermittent fasting is a good one. Of course, I am not by any means giving you medical advice, so, you know, these are just ideas you could contemplate because the astrology is hinting at it. There is a big removal, cut off, and purification energy going all throughout the chart and in this mystical rectangle. So then we have the yod pointing to the moon, which is the divine finger of God, they say, right? It's a very lovely geometrical pattern that requires integration. And it's pointing to Jupiter in Gemini and Chiron in Aries with Eris, another archetype of a feminine wound, of not being listened to, not being valued. These two energies of that Chiron Aries and Jupiter and Gemini working together means that we're in a very healing space regarding our self-esteem, regarding our mindset, our mental health, basically the body-mind connection. Even though it's a very odd relationship to this moon in Scorpio, the energies are odd, but there is a divine magical purpose to it. So your body is an important instrument here that you need to take care of, that you need to empower, that you need to prioritize. And the healing aspect of your mind and body is relevant. And I think this is just another enhancement of why we need to purge deeply. We need to cleanse deeply. We need to eliminate, detox, and purge dense energies, density of all forms. So we need to just keep it light as you can. Now, the ruler is Pluto, of course. Pluto is very destructive energy, very intense, very deep. It likes to dig up and excavate the hidden, the secrets, just like Scorpio. They're perfect together. So, the ruler is basically saying, get out of your own way. Don't try to control and manipulate your situation. Take away yourself because you're interfering in your godly led journey. So no more interference, no more meddling in, with others and in your own storyline. No more advising, no more manipulating, no more control in any form. And therefore, no more karmic entanglement. We're now going to be so aware, especially when Saturn moves into Aries, May 25th, of how entanglement is easily done. We weren't aware of that before, but we will see, because time is speeding up, that the consequences are severe, and we just don't want that anymore. We want more purity in our lives. We want more beauty, more love, higher expressions on earth. And so no more deep, dense, heavy, karmic entanglement. And it's so easy. The moment you advise someone, the moment you basically make them help to make a choice, by interfering in some way, sharing even your opinion, even me myself, really, last week, which you could still count in as pre-full moon energy, I was so aware of how I'm doing this so often. Even though I have my pure intentions that I want to help, I'm interfering. I'm making choices. I'm interfering in the divine path. And it's obstructing my own energy and my own life, my own vitality. And we are so easily manipulating and controlling situations. The more you become aware of this, the more you'll realize how much every one of us is doing that. And it only explains that if we are doing this on the micro level, the personal level, it's no surprise that the macro level of politicians, governments are doing the same. Because micro is macro, macro is micro, That's the quantum vision. We're all connected. It's the Hermes vision, actually. As above, so below. Below affects above. As within is without. So, we're all a holographic mirror of everything, of each other. So the ruler, Pluto, is in Aquarius. It's the only planet retrograde currently. And it's squaring Mercury, Hermes, in Taurus. And Mercury's conjunct Pandora, which is an asteroid, but it's all about revealing, right? And so is Pluto. A square, this intense square, it's a very intense square, it's almost an exact square, means that we have a very enhanced X-ray vision. We have a massive bullshit filter, and we can see through every lie. Nobody will be able to bullshit us anymore. And this is helping the massive revelations and exposés, okay? So you will see, like I said, the manipulation, the control that you're doing, the mentality, the mental fixation that we all have, how that is manipulating, controlling your own situation. But then also we're going to see or receive information literally in the media or in some other way or form that there are, you know, abuse issues, control issues, manipulation issues going on in the public as well. So a massive revelation, revealing energy. Everybody is butt naked, okay? Everybody is in full light. And so the darkness can't run anywhere anymore. There's no, you know, shadow. And it's very confronting. Very confronting, very uncomfortable. But it's more like, it's confronting, but it's what it was. It's like it's already dead or dying off. It's just that last bit of insight before it's over, you know? Because ultimately, yeah, there are oppositions for which we need to find the middle ground. And yeah, they're uncomfortable, but, you know, there are two energies at play, so I kind of feel it's an easier way out. As soon, you know, not going into extremes, finding the middle path is how you can overcome the oppositions here. And they're pretty doable. And then there are a lot of sextiles and trines. And a yod. It's not that difficult. The lunation itself. I mean, you know, other than, of course, Uranus being in the game and at an Algol degree. So there is a lot of pressure. And there is a lot of nervousness, but it's all about breaking off, breaking out, breaking through. And there's no more running away from things. That's the uncomfortable bit. But if you're secure in yourself, and I think that's also the Chiron, Aries, sextiling Jupiter, you know, playing in the yod to this moon, if you're secure in yourself and you have empowered your, you know, your self-esteem is good, like you trust yourself, and you know, you don't just simply trust your mind that keeps, you know, trying to tell you BS, but you're able to confront your mind, you're able to confront deep subconscious matters, deep traumatic experiences. If you're able to do all of that heavy stuff, then you're ready. You've got nothing to be worried about, you know, even though this is a tense lunation. But I feel that if you've done the work until now, it's a release. It's a relief, maybe even. And then, of course, there's a T-square of the nodes pointing at Jupiter. And normally, yes, the T-square is difficult, but we're lucky that it's to Jupiter, which is the most positive planet, arguably. And I think this is just a massive push in the direction of joy. Because Jupiter especially I suppose in Gemini, is a light energy, is about, you know, fun, lightheartedness, social interactions, conversations, curiosity, almost like a little kid, you know, basically like thinking positive and having fun, laughing. We need to remember what brings us joy and just follow that, okay? It's a fated divine message because the nodes are pushing us to look at the joy aspect. So even though this is heavy and a massive exposition of uncomfortability, after the dark, after the rain, the sun will shine. That's a promise. And so you hold on to what brings you joy, knowing what brings you joy, and follow that path, because Jupiter says, I will bring the blessings there. So the next day, May 13th, we have 3 important things going on. Saturn is going to move into 29 degrees of Pisces, which is an aneretic critical degree, the last degree of the zodiac cycle. And so we can expect massive endings that this full moon will shed light on, as well as the Jupiter's T-squaring nodes is going to be exact the next day at 24 degrees of Gemini, 24 degrees of Pisces, 24 degrees of Virgo. So that's going to enhance this lunation energy. And also, Venus is going to hit the eclipse point at 9 degrees of Aries. The eclipse we had 1.5 months ago, March 29th. And that's because she is direct, of course, after a retrograde. So that might be a bit of a trigger to that solar eclipse, which is part of the massive new era energy. So I feel that, you know, that's the cycle of life. Both a massive ending is happening here with this full moon, as well as a trigger to the new. And so the focus is on the end, the elimination, the removal, the completion, and then like 10% we're going to see what's going to come after that. Just remember that with a full moon in Scorpio like this one, we need to go deeper before we can go higher. We need to go low before we can go up. So take care of your body, and be kind and compassionate to yourself. Remember, there might be a lot of emotions going on here, a lot of nervousness. So be kind to your body and take care of yourself. Might be a bit of a bumpy ride, all right? So happy breakthrough and breakout energy for you. Bye. Take care.